Hi, everybody. It's me, Nicole Cliffe. Same as always, here to do my Care and Feeding Live. My column runs on Mondays and Fridays, but not this Friday because it's 4th of July and hopefully you have better things to do than listen to me talk about how you should raise your children or your dogs, which also comes up today. Someone told me that and I'm really excited for it. You have 4th of July. Yesterday was Canada Day, which is why I'm wearing my flannel with the little patches because this is from Roots. And I try to do things to remind myself that even though I have been here since September 10th, 2001, yeah, that was exciting. I am, in fact, Canadian. I was just telling my producer that most American holidays we have some sort of like shoved in Canadian analog for. So it'll be like, you guys have a real holiday. We'll be like, oh, it's Victoria Day, like it's Edward the 19th Day, it's Clotted Cream Day. But the one that gets American companies who move to Canada into trouble is that in the United States you have Memorial Day and you have Veterans Day, and these are both kind of fun days. You have fireworks to give PTSD to the returned soldiers. But you also have barbecues and big sales at stores and things like that. Whereas in Canada, our version of this day is Remembrance Day on November the 11th. And it is a very somber and sober day, and no one is doing anything like that. So we've had American companies who open a store in Canada and are like, ooh, big Remembrance Day sale with like fireworks. And then people are like, no. And they have to apologize, and it becomes a whole cultural mess. So that's just a little education about Canada for you before we start rolling on our questions today, which is what I'm going to do at the current time. All right. How much socializing do young children need? I have a 2.5-year-old and an 11-month-old. My husband and I have decided to hold off placing them in preschool and daycare until next spring due to COVID concerns, but both our mothers say we are doing a disservice to them making friends and learning to socialize in groups. My oldest has 2 friends we see weekly each for outside play dates. My youngest happily toddles alongside them, though she has no friends closer to her own age. They're both happy children, are very good at sharing and hitting all their milestones, but tend to be introverted like their father and me. Do they need more time with friends and in group settings? No, they're fine. That's absolutely fine. Around the age of 3 is when it becomes more important for kids to spend time socializing with their peers who are not their siblings. But you've got, a little time on that. And it's not like it's a hard, if you don't do it when they're 3, they'll never make friends. It's fine considering the circumstances. There are other kids in their life. They've got little friends. They've got each other. They're doing well. Don't worry about it. Tell your moms to go suck an egg. It's fine. You politely just be like, we feel that the girls are actually doing really well. And they have friends who come over and they play with them. And the 2.5-year-old doesn't know what the heck is going on. A 2.5-year-old never knows anything. At this age, they really just want you. They really just want their parents, their sibling, and in this case, the bonus of having a few extra friends who come around. So I think you're doing just fine. I would not worry about this in the least, and don't listen to your mothers on this one. All right, next question. I have a recurring issue with my 9-year-old son. He often does not want to eat dinner with the family and claims he is not hungry, though he always seems hungry when we are eating something he really likes. We eat dinner at around 6. You're required to attend, and if you don't eat, then you don't get a meal later. He knows this, but about once a week he will refuse to eat and then be hungry later. Often he's in a bad mood about something else when this happens, and I think he's just being stubborn and refusing to eat to show his displeasure with whatever the real issue is, not getting enough screen time, etc. However, he gets his stubbornness from me, and I don't give in either, and so he goes to bed hungry. Any advice on how to get out of this dynamic? It's unpleasant for everyone. I think a slightly later dinner time might help, but he has a much younger sister, so we can't do that. Family dinner time is important to me, but it was never this power struggle when I was a kid. Okay, so I think you have a handful of options here, some better than others. I don't think there'd be anything wronger with a slightly later dinner time. Family dinner time is a great idea, but if you wind up feeding the younger child a little earlier, it's not the end of the world. But more importantly, I think he's 9. So he's at the age where, he can make himself a peanut butter and jelly sandwich for dinner if he doesn't like what you're serving. I think you are correct that if he doesn't eat the meal you have provided, you are under no obligation to make him another meal later. You can saran wrap his dinner and put it in the fridge, and he could eat it later then if he wants to, if you're willing to do that. I would just work more on tone here. So just keep it very dispassionate, very disinterested, very sort of a, well, this is your thing, not mine. So I would start with, if he refuses to eat, say, okay, why don't you go pop this in the fridge for later? And then if he wants to eat it sitting by himself at 7 p.m., congratulations. Or saying, if you don't like what I've made, there's the bread, there's the peanut butter, go to town. And just do not give in to the stubbornness off between you and your son. Definitely don't do that, classic mommy dearest thing where you leave the plate there until the end of time and they're sitting there looking at this congealed piece of meat at 2 in the morning while you both just hate yourselves so much. I mean, there's a reason we don't do that anymore. But you've got a couple of good options before it comes to that. If he's in a bad mood about screen time or whatever, he can be in a bad mood about that. He has to learn to handle those moods. And if he doesn't get precisely what he wants it doesn't solve his problem to be refusing to eat. So as long as you just don't get sucked into making this a fight and instead be okay, here are your options, I think this is going to go a lot more smoothly for you. But also, do not crucify yourself on the idea of family dinner time. It's great. I know that the studies all say that it's helpful, but at this age, it's not the most important thing in the world. Like, I know we all love the idea of like the Waltons sitting around this table being like, Johnny, what happened to you today? But you don't need that. You don't need that right now. There will be plenty of years for you to have nice, normal family dinners with everyone there. And if in the meantime, to keep everyone's emotions intact, you instead stagger dinner a little bit, if it does not add a lot of work to your day, then I think that's just fine too. I'm glad you had beautiful family dinners as a child. I'm very happy for you. By the way, if I go blurry or weird, I have traditionally been working off my wireless, and Slate sent me a wonderful little doohickey to instead plug an Ethernet cable in, because as your laptops get newer, they no longer have things you can plug internet cables into. I don't know why that's a thing they wanted to get rid of, but they did. So instead, they sent me a little doohickey to plug things into, and my computer immediately was like, how dare you bring a third into our relationship? This has always been just us. I am so offended. I'm going to throw up a lot of numbers and just upset you completely. But this should be the last week that things are blurry, because I'm going to make my husband fix it, because that is his skill set, whereas mine is telling you what to do with your children, which I shall now get back to with question the third. My sweet child doesn't seem to be fully aware of when she's being bullied or put down. She's 6 and she's incredibly bright intellectually, but not super aware socially. Kids seem to be drawn to her, but then she becomes the target of their competitiveness or jokes. We had an issue in kindergarten where her best friend, her same-age cousin, was actually her playground tormentor. We were blindsided by her suddenly telling us that she was ugly and poor, no, and that she wasn't allowed to play with certain kids unless her friend permitted it or was absent from school. We tackled it with her teacher and with my sister, but it's only partially helped. We just try to keep our distance. We had a similar thing happen with a neighbor child who would want to come over to, I guess, make herself feel better. Like, this 7-year-old would whisper conspiratorially to me about how my daughter watched baby shows or didn't have cool enough toys, all the while seeking my daughter out to play constantly. My daughter doesn't seem to recognize frenemy behavior at all, but again, the weird I'm ugly, I'm poor thing makes me think it's sticking in there somehow. We've talked and talked about noticing bullying behavior, and she can parrot back all sorts of PSA-style talk, but she seems totally oblivious in the moment. I find myself intervening, but should I just let it go? I remember frenemies bullying when I was a child, and I don't want her to internalize any of that. Oh, I just want to punch everyone in the face for you. I'm so repulsed. I'm so repulsed. I know this is, on some level, normal kid behavior, but, I remember it as a kid who was, neurodiverse and attempting to interact with my peers. And I did not enjoy interacting with my peers until I was in my mid to late 20s. Until then, I preferred adults because I found them more predictable and they didn't randomly hurl insults at me. I am not saying your child is neurodiverse, but based on what you've told me here, that she's doing well in most respects, she's doing great academically, but that she has a tough time reading social cues when people are being mean to her or using her or setting her up to be the butt of jokes, that there's something about her that for whatever reason kids are just seeing and latching onto is like, this is a weak member of the pack. Um, I would go ahead and talk to your pediatrician about getting her a consult with a developmental pediatrician, just to knock that out, just to see if there's anything going on developmentally that you can help provide resources and support for. Because there's no reason not to do it. It could be an incredibly helpful thing for you in parenting your child. Right now, the situation sucks. It sucks a whole bunch. So that's, your daughter sounds absolutely lovely, and I just want her to get to be the loveliest person she can be with the most information she can. So that's where I would start. Secondly, I would tear my sister a new asshole. I would just be like, you fucking bitch. If your goddamn punk kid says another fucking thing to my kid, I will never speak to you again, and also I will murder your entire family. Like that's, I would go into full on rage mode about this. I'm telling her she's ugly, that she's poor. Like, it's just your family. Get it together. Apart from that, all you can do in the meantime is continue to try to build resilience. I know it's so different because they can parrot back the nice, good, thankful things you've said to them, but like you said, in the moment, it doesn't matter. So I think you're just going to have to stay in super close contact with teachers, say that you want to hear about these incidents as they come up, and be a real squeaky wheel. Don't let the school think that you're going to space on this. If your kid is having a Lord of the Flies experience at recess every day, that's not acceptable. That's not acceptable. It's 2020. We don't do that anymore. And I remember watching Stranger Things, which was set merely in the 1980s, and being like, did children used to grow up like this? And people were like, yes, they did. No, people flushed people's heads down toilets and they shut them into lockers. And I was just, that would not have flown even when I was a kid. But this is that kind of subtle, awful brand of child torture. And she's 6 and she's sweet and she's naive, and I just really want you to pursue this as far as you can pursue this and just do your best to protect her. I'm glad that she doesn't always recognize when she's being made fun of, because that's not actively upsetting to her, but she does recognize it some of the time, and it also allows her to think this is an acceptable way for me to be treated. And that's something I find really disturbing, and not something I want to have her carry on into the rest of her childhood. I'm very sorry. I just hate these punk little kids. I just really do. And I wish they had better parents like you who wrote to me. Okay. Question 4. My in-laws have always been animal lovers. A month before we had to begin quarantine, their cat died. I guess they were feeling lonely because they got a dog for the first time in 20 years. And not just any dog. They've gone and gotten a Great Dane. I'm very concerned since they live in a house with a small yard and both of them are in their early 80s. My mother-in-law broke her hip last year by tripping over their elderly cat, and now they have a gigantic puppy. They also seem totally unequipped to take care of this dog. She's a sweetheart, but she's just a few months old, so she needs lots of exercise, walks, and training, which they try to do, but just give up and joke about how she finds it fun to get on counters and steal food, and thinks she's very bad because she nips. She's a puppy, it's what they do. My husband is concerned for their health and safety and is starting to think the puppy would be safer with us. We have 2 teens who go on long runs each day, a big backyard, and I'm used to big dogs. I even had a Dane growing up, and we used to have a Rottweiler. I feel conflicted, though. It's clear that they love this puppy, and I probably seem like some greedy dog thief. How do we talk to them about any of this, and possibly talk to them about finding a dog that's a better fit and letting the puppy live with us instead? Okay. So, first of all, Great Danes are so beautiful, hence the enduring popularity of Marmaduke. They also have an average life expectancy of about 7 to 8 years, which is why I myself do not have a Great Dane, because I cannot deal with that pain and loss. When I first saw The Dog Thief portion of this, when I was scrolling down, I was like, oh no, are they going to Ocean's 11, the Great Dane? Like that's an incredible problem. But that's not what you're suggesting. You're suggesting actually talking to your parents about this, which is a much better thing to do than just stealing the dog, because they'll notice. Also, they'll definitely notice. So you've got two different issues here. One is a training question, and the other is a possible rehoming question. And I think that you should present these to your parents as sort of a double-pronged possibility. You can say, we were just real concerned when mom broke her hip last year tripping over a cat, because now you have like a much bigger animal who is also like wandering around, slamming into things. And we think that for your safety and for the dog's happiness, we'd love to help you out with getting, some actual professional dog training for the dog, because you're older. And it would be great if your dog just learned consistently that, better ways to chew on stuff. You can bring over the Kongs with the peanut butter, whatever. How to teach them not to jump on counters, offer a professional so you can do some of the stuff yourself. It seems like you do visit, so you're in the same bubble as far as contagion goes. But you could also float the idea that if you guys are really overwhelmed by the puppy, our kids, and you can really focus on the sort of like kids factor because they love their grandkids. The kids have gotten super attached to Hercules, and we'd be really open to having him live with us so that you could get maybe a slightly older dog who's already, house trained, has house manners, all of the above. A Great Dane is just like very big and is only going to get bigger. And we would love Hercules to death. And we think that everyone might be happier if he lived with us. And we work together on finding you a dog that really suits your lifestyle as people in their 80s who don't want to train a dog. So that would be my suggestion there. Thank you so much for being worried about this dog, for thinking about it. I just appreciate that a whole bunch. Okay. Someone has asked me, Gina has asked me, what skincare products are you loving right now? And what's your favorite Nico Case song? Okay, well, sure. My favorite Nico Case song is Deep Red Bells. I really, really love it. It is about the Green River Killer, Gary Leon Ridgway, but that doesn't make it any less beautiful. I like it so much. I also love all of Nico's work with the New Pornographers. This Hurricane Loves You. I think that everything she touches turns to gold. She's a beautiful, beautiful angel. And we should all support Nico Case. And she's just fantastic. Thank you for asking me about that. When it comes to skincare products, it is something I think about a great deal. I have a little fridge in my bathroom filled with things. Generally, I recommend a cheap cleanser because it's only on your face for a second. So who cares? Just get Cetaphil or whatever. Don't overwash your face. Try not to strip your face too much, particularly if you're acne prone. It will cause your skin to produce more sebum, which will get you into like a continuing battle. I'm 37. So basically in the morning, I use my cheap cleanser. I put on a very nice moisturizer, which I will not tell you the name of because then you'll look it up and you'll see how much it costs and you won't trust me about anything anymore. Because my judgment is so bad. And then I put on sunscreen. I really like Goop's Unseen sunscreen. I find it's a perfect like serum-y texture. And it does not leave any kind of white cast and it goes on everywhere and it's just the best. I think it's absolutely fantastic. You can put it on over makeup or under makeup, whatever floats your boat. And then at night, I wash my face again. I put on a retinol, which is something which is important as you get older. And it is not a prescription retinol. I find that my skin is very sensitive and I would become too red and inflamed, even if I just start with a pea-sized drop. If you overreact to your retinol, I suggest as you're backing into it, you can do it every third night and every second night. You can also put it on after your moisturizer has sunk in a little bit. And that will cut down on irritation. So eventually you'll want to stop doing that. And then over the retinol, I have an anti-redness serum, and then I have just a night cream. And for that, I'm just like any friggin' moisturizer is fine. I like my active ingredients to be in my retinol and my serums, and I just like a nice, basic, moisturizing, relaxing night cream. I really recommend First Aid Beauty's Rich Cream. I think it's fantastic. It's a great, inexpensive brand, and I recommend it. Thank you for asking about my skin. Okay, let's go to our last official question for the day. This weekend, I put my 2.5-year-old in underwear instead of diapers. Pee is mostly going in the toilet, yay! But 5 poops have gone in her underwear. Should we go back to diapers for a month and try again? I don't want her to be just okay pooping in her underwear. I told her she would get a big surprise if she pooped on the toilet, and she's very excited, but I'm worried a habit has already been formed. Okay, so what you're going to want to do here probably is, like, pull-ups are a step back. They're not quite diapers. My mom says they're diapers. They're not quite diapers. It's not quite underwear, but then you're not cleaning poop out of underwear constantly. And the thing with pull-ups is you just have to keep reinforcing the, like, pee goes in the potty, let's sit down, let's have our pee. So that if your child is already doing a really good job peeing in the potty, it's just a question of pulling down pull-ups instead of underwear, and then just asking her constantly if she needs to poop, just constantly, consistently, so that it becomes a dull refrain in the back of her head, so that she's asking herself, do I need to poop at a given moment? And she's 2.5, which is a perfectly reasonable time to still be sorting this stuff out. I think you're doing great. You're on track. Poop often takes longer than pee, very often. Yeah, I think it's going to be okay. Make sure she's not constipated. Like, I'm not going to be like, look at the consistency of the poop, but also, like, take a little look. And if she's experiencing any kind of discomfort or straining, that would be something to adjust her diet with. Sometimes kids, hold in poops until they have to go in their underwear because they are painful. So just try to eliminate that as a possibility if you can. Okay, best of luck. I really hope that works. Get in touch, because I would actually just love to hear how that's going, because I hear that question a lot. This one is from Katie. Hi, Nicole. Do you have podcast recommendations? Oh, I very much do. I listen exclusively to one podcast, which is Case File. All one word, Case File, which is an Australian podcast about crime. It is the least exploitative, best researched podcast out there. They have 1 million back episodes, each of which is genius. The narrator goes by Casey, as in Case File, but he's a very handsome sounding Australian man who has not made his identity known, although you can track it down on the internet pretty easily if you decide to, get all homicide detective about it. But I find it absolutely brilliant. In a lot of cases, it's not they have a lot of Australian cases, but it covers crimes all over the globe, and I really think it's just fantastic. I also listen to You Must Remember This, the Hollywood podcast, the Old Hollywood podcast by Karina Longworth, which I think is really great. And I sometimes use to put myself to sleep. So when I hear her voice, it's a little Pavlovian, like I can't listen to it when I'm driving. I just sort of go like that. So I have to listen to it at home in bed for the most part. I get too relaxed. It's on furlough right now, but First Aid Kit is just the best. It's the best. I've been on it. I said some very embarrassingly graphic things about the guy who plays Bill Tench on Mindhunter. But if you're at all interested in female desire and sexuality and what we're into, I cannot stress enough how fun and somehow respectful First Aid Kit is. It's beautiful, and you can listen to the old episodes and get excited for more. And yes, those are my favorite podcasts. Thank you so much for asking, Katie. All right. Do I have any info about sleepwalking? Well, it's usually not demons. That's basically what I know about sleepwalking, unless it's in a movie, and then it's always demons. It's not demons. That's not your issue. So when it comes, kids grow out of it. Deal with any stress or anxiety that your kid might have free floating, And then what you're really just going to want to work on is safety, just basic safety. So depending on the age of the child, this is the sort of thing where you're going to want door stoppers. You're going to want to make sure that they don't have, I mean, we live directly next to a cliff. And so, everyone's sort of like, don't lock your kids in thing, is we're like, we will be better off saving them in a fire than we will be if they fall down the cliff. So just safety, safety, safety. And also, it's worth doing just a sleep consult to see if there's something funky going on there, because it's not that common. And for parents especially, it can be incredibly distressing. So I wish you all the best with whatever your sleepwalking situation is. It's not a demon. Anna asks, has raising a foal informed anything about your parenting, and vice versa? Okay, so I have a foal. He was born on April 28th, so he's a Taurus. His name is Orion. He's going to be a dark bay. He has a big white star on his forehead, and my friend and I it was her mare, are raising him together, but he's mine. And yes, it teaches you a lot. Working with horses, to the extent I do, has actually taught me a lot about kids. The main difference is that between horses and people, apart from the leggedness and such forth, is that we are predators, though we forget this, and horses are prey animals, and dogs are predators. And so it's easier to relate to dogs because we're both excited about new things and surprises are fun. Whereas for prey animals, surprises always mean they're about to die. Novelty is not a good thing for a prey animal. So there are ways in which it's extremely different, but the things that are helpful are just consistency, consistency, consistency. Rewards, being important to time well. Never yell at them or correct a behavior when they're small, especially. Never yell at or correct a behavior that happened more than 3 minutes ago, because they cannot connect these two things. They'll just think you're nuts. Also, the importance of ending on a good note. If your child is just really struggling to accomplish something and you see them do anything right, just anything right. If your child's been a mess all day and then nicely holds your hand on the way to the car, just make a huge fuss and be like, that was awesome. So that they go out remembering the achievement and the feeling of having done something right, and not the 20 minutes of difficulty that preceded that. Also, how much easier it is to train them out of things when they weigh this much instead of when they are 1,400 pounds, which is how big Orion is going to be in about a year and a half. If you would like, I can put more pictures of my growing baby boy in this stream going forward, if you would enjoy that. But he's very beautiful, and he's a Frisian sport horse. He's a Frisian sport horse. His mother is an appendix quarter, which is half quarter horse, half thoroughbred, and his father was a very, very beautiful Frisian stallion who tragically died earlier this year, because horses are not healthy. They are determined to die, and they suffer from all kinds of ailments, and they can't throw up. So if they ever eat anything bad, they're just screwed, which is why equine vets are heroes, and they have a really difficult job. So that's what raising a foal has taught me about parenting. I think that's it for now. I'm glad we've had a good time together. I promise to be less blurry next week. And again, you are totally welcome to send in any kind of random questions. I greatly enjoyed telling you about my favorite podcast, My Skin, My Horse. Always open to those questions. So I want you to have a wonderful long weekend if you get to have a long weekend, and just, yes, have the best time. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.